So we do have a council here, yeah, and we pay this thing called a council tax, which is very interesting for a lot of different reasons. Now, I've got quite on the bandwagon with the council because of the lacking of things they do. And this whole thing with Mr. Starmer apparently in the papers is going to be going after children that are homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And again, he's going to be giving this over to the councils. My question to you is, which council? Yeah. And again, you know, any politician that I've ever met, or anybody else across the board, or council officer, or police officer, or any paramedic, or any doctor, which is one side of the establishment. And I have to say it this way, there's no us, there's no you, because we're all equal individuals at the end of the day. I bleed like you bleed, I breathe like you breathe. No difference, right? We're all going to meet our demise. You were born naked just like I was, and you had to be taught. Anyway, but when you say to us, in this term, us being establishment versus non-established individuals, if you want to say it that way, when you say don't tar us all with the same brush, well, I don't trust cops. Why don't you trust cops? Well, because this other copper. Well, that weren't me. You can't tar us all with the same brush. And then if you say it to a politician, well, you useless politician. Well, you can't tar us all with the same brush. That's not fair. So why is it then, when you want to enforce laws to try and gain more control to individuals, that when one person does something in the masses that was towards their children, do you then say, we're going to take away homeschooling from everyone? Yeah. Why do you tar us all with the same brush?
Exactly, then it works like that.
Or is it a case of you don't do what we do, you do what we tell you? I don't find that very fair for a number of reasons. One, I think it's up to individual right that they should be allowed to, if they're capable and feel capable to do so, teach their kids and put their kids wherever they want to put their children and not be dictated to by a government. And the word dictated is very clear in that. I'm going to use it very clearly because that is a dictatorship. Where you can't do this with your children, you can't do that. The way I see it, this establishment, the way it is pumping out a lot of kids that seem to be quite not what society expects from individuals. Yeah. And if that would be enough assumption to a non-established person looking at that, that's a higher statistic than people who are homeschooled. So therefore, are you really generating children with an education that is one shoe fits all? And you're creating an awful lot of depression in this whole schooling. The schooling is all about pen, paper, brainwash, more corporation, understanding this, where's your place, is at the bottom, this is where you're at. Now, I don't agree with any of that. I don't agree with the way you treat most children in schooling. And I can only base this on my background. Well, times have changed. You're not allowed to spill on what happened to you. Another thing that is going to be very interesting for me is my grandfather, my mum's, and my education is all different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My grandfather's stuff is all wrong and incorrect, most of it. My mum's, most of it is incorrect. And mine now, today's standard, is all incorrect. Yeah. So with this error in this, and then we've got the councils. Mm-hmm. Now, are we going to be talking about county councils that are going to do this? Because there's an interesting point that I would like to make is a county council versus a district council, isn't it? Yeah. What it is a district council around here, such they say in a letter that came through the door today that South Norfolk is the place to be. Yeah, if you want to be broke in the future, remember this particular council, this one council, is £20 million in debt. Yeah. 20 million. We're not talking about the whole area. And the last time I remember, they'll say that you can't borrow money off of a bank because you're really poor with a little bit amount of money and you're really irresponsible with a little tiny piece of money. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to give you a large amount of money because you won't be able to handle it properly. Yeah. So why is the council getting it? Mm-hmm. When clearly you're very irresponsible with large amounts. And I think it comes from a lot of the understanding that we knock down a police station to rebuild a new police station. Yeah. There's no money coming back from that. That's not an investment. That's nothing. That is not. I don't agree with police officers working in bad environments, but you know, a lick of paint in the areas that they are in. But another thing that comes up from that is, should police officers be inside a building somewhere? Or should they be out somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, why should we have a large amount of officers if they're not needed? Fine line with all of that. So, another thing is, we knock down old hospitals.
Yep.
So we build a new hospital and knock down the old hospital.
Yep.
Can you tell me where the investment back in that is?
Nowhere.
So what would be a more better approach, and I mean my government would most certainly be doing this in a very different way, and I think that it speaks for everybody in the community and anyone that pays a tax. Considering we are a nation that pays the most on fuel tax, we are the nation that pays the most on tobacco tax, we are a nation that pays the most on food tax, sugar tax, council tax. Nowhere else seems to be paying this, and if they are paying it, they're definitely not paying council tax. But if they are paying the rest of the taxes, there's a lot less tax being paid, and they seem to be able to do an awful lot more with it. Now, if you're going to collapse the NHS, as your plans to do so, it's very clear in the way that you are handling all of these situations, then can you tell me something? Then taxes should go down an awful lot. Massively. Because once you finish collapsing the NHS and you finish collapsing the dentists, you've near enough done that here in Norfolk for sure, and you've near enough collapsed all of that and you've moved it over to private, you know, where you're going to make some money, and you've got rid of benefits, can you tell me what would be the purpose of having a government? Road tax is paid, on-car tax. Why do we still have potholes?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're paying for a service, but neither one of us across the whole entire country are actually benefiting from this service, then what is the point? Because I think that the biggest claimers of benefits are individuals that sit in a council, especially in the environmental health sector and different things like that, that do not do their job.
Yeah.
And that they're paid within the region of 21 grand to 48,000 pounds to do a job that they don't do. Or, at the very most, can't do. And then we're hearing the re-echoing of laws that were already supposed to have been brought in, that haven't been brought in, that landlords can't increase rent by this much. Now, according to the papers and everywhere else, this was already enforced. But it's not. It's still something that you're still thinking about doing. And I think that while you're arguing back and forth with one another at PM questions back and forth, it's not actually doing any work. It's just arguing for the sake of arguing. And it's not doing anything. And I can tell you, from someone on the receiving end of these, it's not benefiting us.
Yeah.
And I'm really struggling. I would change all of this. And another thing is, why would it be okay for politicians to sell off public assets? We pay a tax for things like private housing. No, social housing, I'm sorry. Social housing. So we built a load of council houses out of taxes, yes?
Yeah.
And then someone in the Houses of Parliament at one point in the past said, we're going to sell all of those off.
Yeah. They did, didn't they?
So now, if someone is in social housing and they pay their rent, it's going into a CEO's pocket. And it's quite profitable because this CEO is making billions per year.
Yeah.
And each year it's going up and up and up. Shouldn't that money, which is taxpayers' money, so this is fraudulent, shouldn't that money not go into a CEO's pocket, but have been going into a tax pot? You see, I would undo all of this. This I would unpick. Why? I would use our laws, law enforcement, and anything else for that matter to go and reclaim all of these council houses back because they were sold under fraudulent terms.
Yeah.
Where was the vote? We were forced to pay a tax that was going to pay to build council houses. The council houses then, once they were built, they would then start generating a rent. When this rent was being generated and being paid, it would then be taken as a subsidy, let's say, not a subsidy, it would then be made as a profit pot. This profit pot, if it was like 1 billion, and yet, I don't know, let's say if it was 1 billion, but 500 million was on repairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've then got another 500 million, 500 million, I believe, that can go into the tax pot for what? More council houses to be built.
Yeah.
Better wages for armed forces, better wages for police officers, better wages for doctors. more hospitals to be built from that. And then the next year, there would be another billion go in. Repairs aren't going to be conducted all the way through. This would have made jobs. I would make sure that this would go back. As a government, I would pull all of this back. And so help me, I will do it and I will get it done. Why? Because it needs to be done. TV licensing, made from the tax pot. Once again, this is from taxpayers' money, and then it has been sold off to somebody. One, who gave you the right to do that? Because if it was put before the public, they would ask the question of, do you want us to sell this?
Yeah.
And I would say no, and I'm sure everybody else would say no, because that money now, that is now going into someone's CEO's pocket,
Yeah. Yeah.
is not going back into the tax pot.
Mm-hmm.
If we had all of these things, such as energy companies, if we owned all of our energy companies as a nation, from our taxes that built those, from our taxes that regulated those,
Yeah.
and every time we paid a bill, it was going back into the tax pot.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have energy into the tax pot, profit, no CEO, the profit would go into the tax pot.
Mm-hmm.
So energy, water, TV license, rent. All of these things would go into a tax pot. That's what a government should be governing. And then we would have money in the pot for world-class NHS, world-class dentistry, world-class houses, world-class farming, world-class food shops. We would have this. We would have good jobs. We would have an awful lot of potential in this money. And where there's money, we could use that money. Let's say if all of this stuff was working really nicely and it was generating a big profit pot that governments sit with, are not allowed to take, but sit with. We'd have world-class benefit system. We'd have world-class wages from this. Not only that, if we ever had a frontier called space that we would want to go to or build rockets, we would have a large amount of money in our treasury in order to be able to go and do any adventure that we saw fit as a nation. If we needed new life-saving equipment, we'd have the money. The money is not the answer to everything, but it could be used to pay people good amounts of money for incentive for them to work to build this together. The money pays the wages, which a good wage, look, anyone that can do this is how much the wages go. Oh, I'm going to try everything I can to get that, but you see, this is where it would roll into. We wouldn't have lacking houses that are falling in disrepair because certain landlords decide to choose profit over fixing. And then this is knocking on because it's crashing our NHS. Why is it crashing our NHS? Well, we now got mould in buildings. We've never seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors no longer come to your house anymore.
Yeah.
Well, with that, isn't there missing a lot of the picture? The doctor's thinking, okay, you've got a wide range of symptoms here. I'm going to give you this antibiotic. And you get another infection. I'm going to give you this antibiotic. Cool, it must be that you've got a weak immune system or something. Little do they know that they're living in a house that is generating a lot of bacteria because a toilet is leaking underneath the house. Everybody knows it, even the landlord knows it, but will not be putting any of that money because that's taking money out of my profit pot. The more I spend on this house, you know, the less I'm going to have to play with. And then we've got councils that should be there to deal with this sort of fallout, and they ain't got a freaking clue when it comes to it. Well, I don't know what maggots under the house would mean. It usually means that there's something dead. It's nothing dead. Trust me, I've been trying to look for something that's dead around the house. There isn't anything. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with the richness in the soil from sewer water. It's leaching out under the house. Again, they don't want to do anything because, you know, well, it's either they can't or... No, I think it's just that they just don't want to. Oh, you're calling me again, you know. Be grateful, we gave you the house anyway. We'd have so many houses by now if it was done in this way, the way it was intended to be.
Yeah.
We would have more houses than you'd know what to do with. We'd be touching space already. We'd have put our own men on the moon. gotta understand why it's all melted down from a nation that was capable of building pistons to making the first steam trains to making the first railway.
Yeah.
And it's all gone.
Who came with the time, actually, concept of
It's nearly all
property,
gone.
yeah.
It's all gone.
Yeah.
It's practically it. And people are not going to be staying in this nation thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to stick here. No, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to help that pot because it seems to help the people in the pots. And we pay a council tax and you are in debt. That's absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
You even were letting individuals. Now you see, I wouldn't be so happy about this if it wasn't the fact that you allowed this to be sold, and in the process of selling it, you then put in this institution that is there to protect us from rogue landlords and different things, and you don't even bother. Oh, here's an extractor fan. Your equipment is less than poor. How we here in Britain know whether a house has been insulated correctly is whether it's got loads of these notches in the outer wall. And even in the walls that don't have twin walls, it's just one layer of bricks. So it doesn't even have twin wall, so you can't even put any cavity inside it. They've still got the same holes in it. And anyone that comes round, they assume that that's got insulation in it. Oh look, because I can see it. Is this what you're being taught?
Looks it.
It'd be much more better if you grabbed a thermal camera and had a look. What about holes around the sides of the windows then? The windows haven't even been put in properly. So, getting back to it with the doctors, we're crashing our own NHS. But I think this is more profitable though, isn't it?
Yeah.
What, we're going to put the NHS into another CEO's hands? Just take a look. When you've got a CEO involved, they're going to favour their profit over your health. You.
Yeah.
It would be a very foolish mistake for any government to let that fall down. It'd be foolish because, again, the question would need to be asked, what is your purpose after all of that?
Yeah.
The water companies. Maintaining all those pipes to get that water into your house, but are you maintaining the pipes that take the sewerage away? And then I ask the question, how many bust pipes leaving the house? When you see how many times your water fails, how many have you got leaving your house that are failing underneath your house?
Yeah.
And then you get this mold and this bacteria growing and these rusty nails everywhere. And you keep going to the doctor with this complaint and they just look at it as a you problem, go and do this test, that test, every other test. We can't find anything. Well, this must be because you've got a immuno problem. This might be because of this, this and this. But yet if they came to your house and saw, oh, okay, all right. Oh, it smells a bit here, doesn't it? It smells a bit sewery here. Is that good for someone's health? No, it isn't. Why is it not good for your health? Well, we have to give you antibiotics. Well, what's the harm in giving me antibiotics, doctor? Bacteria resistance to them is the problem of that.
Yeah.
So needlessly, we have to keep giving you antibiotics when actually it's your environment that's making you ill. No, we recommend that you should move, you should go, you should leave. The landlord needs to keep this house. And then you'd have the council that came in and said, you're not letting this house out until it is fixed. Not one that's flimmy-flammy. Oh, we'll just get you an extractor fan, shall we? That will do. Oh. What weakness is that? How weak is that? You're laughing. You're laughable. Literally laughable. That's all you've got? The biggest might with the big crown and everything else above it? That massive stamp of apparently power is now nothing more than a piece of metal that means nothing. Your equipment that when you come out is poor. It's below standards. Based on your assumption based. Well, I walked through the house, took the left, turned to my left, walked through here. What are we relying on? Smell? Taste? What are they relying on to check a house? One epoxy meter.
Okay.
Oh, I see those marks in the wall. That definitely means that you've got insulation. I know more than you do. The way we test it, we'll drill a hole here, quickly shove a camera in the wall. Yeah, that's that bit of the wall right there where I've been told to go by the landlord. Yeah, there's definitely insulation there. But then when the wall starts to fall apart inside the house, you can see into the cavity.
And
there's no insulation in that bit. Must be just that bit. Oh, and then you find another wall. There's no insulation in there either. Wow, that's like 35% of the house has insulation. Minimal loft insulation, just weak. It's absolutely weak. When you would need more of a force with the council that if they're going to do the job would be to come and check the house before they let it out. And if it is deemed that it is good enough to be let, then they get a tick.
Yeah.
But mark my words, that you tick a house when it is not okay, you will be liable to be sued. And so you should be.
Yeah.
But yet, if you put a cross in it, here you go, landlord. Oh, and by the way, landlord, you will be liable for the tax.
Yeah.
No tax break. What? Well, best you get those repairs done pretty quick then.
Yeah. Hurry up.
It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And then what could we start to do? We could then start to get affordable housing for all people in the nation, not just a few. Well, it's okay, we'll give that to someone who's homeless. Oh, well, it's okay, we'll give that to someone who's low income. And we talk about equality here. You shout it the loudest. You talk that it is all equality. Can you help me understand what part of that is equality?
None.
None. There is no equality in that whatsoever. That is insignificant people in the nation versus... That is not treating people equally. And then I wonder how many kids grow up in that environment that you turn a blind eye to, and all the rest of it. But I ask the question, and I do ask the question, you want people in a school? Really? You want people in a school, but you don't care about the house that they are in that is dangerous. Cold, wet, full of mould, full of rusty nails. Well, it's okay if they're only there part of the time. You know, that reduces the risk by this much. But it's absolutely shocking. And this is a nation that cares about children, is it? This is a nation that gives a shit about kids, is it? This is a council that cares about children, vulnerable adults. If you need to even say that we care about children more than we do anybody else, I can assure you then that is not equal. That if people say, well, you shouldn't even have children in an environment like that. No. You shouldn't have anybody in a building like that. That's what you should be saying. That's where it should be. It shouldn't be anybody. Not because they're a vulnerable adult. Not because they're a child. Not because it's a woman. It should be any man, women or children in an environment like that. No human should habitate a place like that. Ask yourself the question while walking round. Would you live in this yourself? And the answer would be no. You know it. Then should anybody else?
No.
See, this would all be changed. All of this would go away because you sold it. It's fraudulent. You should never have sold that out of the tax pot. And then I have to listen to everybody being called fraudsters who claim benefit. I have to listen to that a lot. You see it come up on news articles here, there and everywhere. I have to hear that come out of politicians' mouths. Look over there. Look at these people on benefits. Look, they're all this and this. Are you kidding me? If we take a calculator and just add up the amount of tax that you lot all get, what's it going on? People on benefits, immigrants. Where's it going? Where's all that? Because that is a small drop in a very, that's a small drop in Saturn. That's a very small drop in Saturn, that is. Where's all the rest of it go? Asbestos should be looked at way more than what smoking should be looked at. Smoking tobacco causes cancer. Right? Whereas I agree with that step in some level, I disagree with it on a large proportion. Compared to asbestos, that stuff is easier to fix. Not always, but it's more of a chance of surviving from cancer induced by smoking than it is done by asbestos. And these buildings are littered in asbestos and poisonous substances. And with that, when you have a bus go by and it vibrates, that is leaking out little tiny pieces of dust. And you may categorize this into A or B or 1 or 2. Asbestos is asbestos. Should it be in a building at all? Should it be used to line the foundations of any building? No, it really should not. Should it have been left this long after the year 2000? Should it have been left that long? No, I disagree. No. I'll ask the question, any of you inside the councils on your big salaries, have you got any asbestos in your building that you would like to share with us? Because if these housing associations cannot manage the asbestos that they've got, because here's the deal, we've got asbestos in this building that they don't even know about. Well, you can't be trusted with that in the presence of children and vulnerable people, but yet you seem to know what's best for kids that need to be not homeschooled anymore. Something is very much arguing with your actions here. Yeah. Suicides are on the up. Health problems are rising faster, but we don't know where they're coming from. I got a little bit of a news flash for you. Come here for a little bit. Come in this building, whether you be a king, politician, all of you up the top. Come here for a week. Each of you spend a week here and see how you feel at the end of it. Move the stuff completely out and you come and spend your time here. Around all of this stuff. Around the leaking stuff that hasn't been cleared away underneath the house. You come live here and see if you get sick. Let's play Russian roulette. There ain't